Welcome back, everybody, to the most interesting channel on YouTube. Today, we are going to continue speaking about deeper spiritual concepts, more in depth, because the more we learn about these concepts, the more we're able to integrate them into our understanding and view of the world, the greater our consciousness can expand, can comprehend, and can live on a deeper spiritual plane. And that is the goal. Okay, so this is titled, What are Klipot? The Mystical Shells of Spirituality Explained. As you know, this is Today's Takes with Alex, and I am your host, Alex. And welcome to this exploration of one of the more enigmatic concepts in Jewish mysticism, the Klipot. Literally, the word Klipot means shells or husks or peels. Klipot represent the forces that conceal or obstruct divine light in our world, like like lies, idol worship. Idol worship really is one of the biggest ones because it takes our consciousness and awareness of the one God and spreads it throughout to different entities, masking and obstructing the consciousness that allows for us to tap into divine blessing, divine light. So if we are not so in the Ten Commandments, the first commandment is, I am God, right? So everything starts with that initial awareness, and as long as we tap into that and start with that point, like we talked about yesterday, Keter, right? The initial point of all divine countenance. As long as we tap into that, then we're connected to kedusha or holiness. If we tap into other things, then we're tapping into tuma, and that leads us astray. Okay, so the Klipot appear prominently in the teachings of the Zohar, and especially in Lurianic Kabbalah, that's the Arizal, the profound system developed by the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria, in the 16th century. Today we're going to unpack what the classical sources actually say about the Klipot, how they came into being, the different types recognized in tradition, and why this idea offers such a hopeful and practical message for spiritual growth. No sensationalism, just a clear, respectful look at this deep Kabbalistic concept. So let's dive in. At its core, the word klipa is a beautiful everyday metaphor. Think of the peel of an orange or the shell around a nut. The peel protects the fruit, but also hides the sweet edible part inside. In Kabbalah, the Klipot function similarly. They are layers that surround and conceal sparks of holiness. Everything in creation contains some measure of divine light. That's how it's created, and that's how it's sustained. And the sustaining energy from God. But in our broken material world, that light is often trapped or covered over. The Klipot are those coverings. They aren't usually portrayed as independent evil beings in mainstream Jewish teaching, but rather as barriers or forces of concealment that arise within the process of creation itself. Right now, the way we live, the way we see things, we don't automatically recognize and acknowledge holiness in everything. We see things, material things. But if we use things properly, if we say a blessing over what we eat, and we eat it with the right intention, or partake in different actions with the right intention, we're able to elevate that item or that activity and harness and elevate that spark into our own, vessel, into the vessel of the world. So the idea has roots in the Zohar, the central text of Kabbalah, where the Klipot are described as husks that serve a purpose, much like a nutshell protects the kernel. Yet they can also become thick and obstructive when holiness is not properly revealed. To understand where the Klipot come from, we need to look at the Lurianic creation story, one of the most influential ideas in Jewish mysticism. Before creation, God contracted or withdrew, a process called tzimtzum, to make space for the world. If God is omnipotent, omnipresent, right, and it's only Him, then how is it that we can walk around and, people still do, bad things, right? Well, it's because there's been a contraction of that divine revelation called tzimtzum. Then divine light flowed into 10 spiritual vessels. So after God contracted Himself, He created a system where there's 10 spiritual vessels, and He made it so that divine light flowed through these vessels, the sphirot, the channels or attributes through which God's infinite light is revealed in a structured way. So the sphirot are like the medium, the conduit of God's infinite light down through different worlds of different levels and steps of concealment or revelation, however you want to see it, but ultimately down to our world where everything seems to be concealed, right? So the channels are attributes through which God's infinite light is revealed in a structured way. The upper vessels could contain the intense light, but the lower 7 vessels shattered under its power. So this is when God first created, desired to make Himself concealed for this process of nurturing and developing consciousness. This cosmic event is known as the breaking of the vessels, or Shvirat HaKelim. Most of the light returned to its source, but many holy sparks fell and became trapped among the broken shards. So throughout the world, different sparks, divine sparks with divine intention, right, purposefully, because nothing happens on accident. Everything is part of God's orchestration. Different sparks throughout the world that become revealed in our daily lives, right? Again, how we eat, how we conduct ourselves, how we speak, how we interact, but also throughout history, right? Different sparks become revealed and become available to be utilized and elevated at different points in history. So from those shards emerged the Klipot, the husks or shells. These shells now encase the exiled sparks of divinity. The material world we live in is built from this mixture, holiness mixed with concealment. This isn't just ancient cosmology. It explains why our world contains both breathtaking goodness and profound brokenness, beauty alongside suffering. The Klipot represent the other side, the Sitra Achra, the realm that appears separate from God's direct light. Kabbalistic tradition doesn't treat all Klipot the same. A key distinction emphasized in Hasidic teachings, such as the Tanya by Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, is between two categories. Okay, first category of Klipa is Klipa Noga, the shell of radiance. Okay, this is an intermediate type, a gray area, a shell that can be illuminated or elevated. It has potential to be elevated. It surrounds many neutral or potentially positive things in life, like physical pleasures, work, or even certain desires. With the right intention, through Torah study, mitzvot, commandments, or holy actions, with the right intention, we can crack the shell, extract the spark of light inside, and elevate it back to holiness. That's what we're here to do. This is part of the great work of tikkun, or repair, or rectification. The second type of klipot are the impure klipot. These are the completely unclean or dark husks. They are more resistant to elevation and are associated with forces of impurity, destruction, and unrectifiable evil. Their ultimate fate in the Messianic era is not elevation, but dissolution or transformation, when all sparks are redeemed and evil loses its foothold. In Ezekiel's vision of the divine chariot, these forces are alluded to as whirlwind, cloud, and fire, while Klipot Noga, the Klipot that have the potential to be elevated, appear as glowing, translucent, with a glowing translucence around them. The Klipot as a whole are said to draw sustenance from the holy sparks they enclose. They have no independent life force. When we perform mitzvot with joy and proper focus, the right intention, we weaken the hold of the shells and release the trapped light. So, what does this mean practically? In Kabbalah and Chassidut, the Klipot are not primarily something out there to fear. They are often manifest personally as the barriers we create or encounter, like ego, fear, habitual negativity, selfish desires, or spiritual numbness that block us from experiencing God's light and our own soul's potential. These are the character traits that we all need to work on. Every good deed, every act of kindness, every moment of sincere prayer or ethical living peels away a layer of the klipa. This is the daily work of our birur, the clarification or extraction of sparks. By choosing holiness in the midst of the material world, we participate in tikkun olam, the repair and elevation of the entire creation. That is what we are here to do. The Arizal and later masters taught that even the existence of the Klipot ultimately serves a higher purpose. They create the challenge and the choice that make our free will meaningful and our service to God genuine. Again, if we live in a period which is ending, but we live in a period where there is a concealment. When we walk around, we don't necessarily feel God's presence. But if we think about looking at a beautiful, very moving, like natural setting, like whether it be mountains, whether it be a waterfall, whether it be looking out to the ocean, just something that's like natural and pure, right? Hasn't been contaminated in any way. There's a certain sense that we can feel that, wow, there's something otherworldly about this setting. Today, long after the Temple era, and in a world still filled with apparent chaos, the teaching of the Klipot remains profoundly optimistic. It tells us that nothing is wasted. Even the darkest shells may conceal a spark waiting to be redeemed. Our everyday choices matter on a cosmic scale. Whether you approach Kabbalah as philosophy, mysticism, or practical spiritual guidance, the Klipot remind us to look deeper, to see beyond the outer husk to the inner light in ourselves, in others, and in every experience. The concept of Klipot opens a window into the Kabbalistic view of reality, a world in exile and repair, where divine sparks are hidden but never lost, and where each of us has a role in bringing light out of darkness. And if this resonated with you, let me know in the comments. If you have questions or if you have any insight or feedback into what was shared today, go ahead. Post it. Have you ever felt like you were peeling away a spiritual shell in your own life? What mitzvah, commandment, or practice helps you reveal more light? Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's mindful movement like yoga or exercise. Maybe it's getting together with friends and uplifting each other and being being a support, right? Because we all have Klipot in our lives. So we, if we act as a support for someone else, we are able to help that reveal that light in them. So please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you catch future explorations of Jewish thought and mysticism and how it can be understood and applied to your everyday thinking. Again, thanks for watching. Be blessed. Have a great day. Happy Tuesday. And check back tomorrow for another video. Have a great day. Thank you.